What's going on, guys? In today's video we're going to be installing these aftermarket turn signals on my 23 Kawasaki Vulcan. So I already got this side installed, did the whole process, so that way I can have a very fast and clean video to show you guys how to do it. The tools you'll need for this are pretty standard. I would have a socket set, some wrenches, screwdrivers, and then depending on how you connect your wires, heat shrink, soldering gun, butt connectors, wire strippers. So let's get into this. So the first thing we have to do is take this screw out right here. Now we're going to pull this out. Now to get this off, you got to take a little Phillips tip in here and unscrew this cap. Now it's unscrewed, all you got to do is pull this cap off. Now from here, we just got to pull this plastic piece out and disconnect the two wires right there. Pull this sleeve right off, and this is what we're going to need to do this build. So we've got to do two things. One, we have to cut this nipple off here and this bracket here and drill a hole out to fit my stud on my turn signal. And then we have to cut these fins out right here. So this is why a Dremel tool works great. What I'm going to use for this is a flat blade, and then in here I'm going to use a boring kit. And then after we get that cut off, I stuck a sander in there and cleaned it up. So we're going to cut it here and here. So now this is separated, I'm going to stick this back in. For this I'm using a sanding attachment on the Dremel. Now we're going to cut this nipple off. Now this is what we have. Now we have to drill a hole directly through here that fits our stud. So what I did, because I only had a few drill bits here, is I took a block of wood and I drilled a hole through it with the tip I thought, and then ran this through to make sure and it fit properly. So I just held them with vice grips, drilled it through. If you want, if you have a piece of wood, you could run a screw through here to hold it down and drill through there. Now our hole is big enough to fit the turn signal through. I'm going to shoot a little bit of paint on it. Alright, so while that's drying, now I'm going to take my bore bit, go in here, we're going to cut this piece straight across, and then this down, clean this whole piece out, and then actually shave a little bit of this. So here's what it looks like all cut out. So after I used the bore bit on it, I went through and just stuck the sander in there, cleaned it up, and now we should be good. Depending on how long your stud is and the turn signal you guys are using, you know, it might not have to have as much cut out, or it might need more. Just be careful when you're running your Dremel in there, because it does want to actually pop out and you chance hitting the plastic on the outside. Mine came with 3 wires. I already snipped the one I do not need here. And mine's actually such a perfect fit, I can actually just kind of thread it in there. And I'm going to feed my nut on. I'm not going to tighten this completely with the wrench yet, because we got to make sure it is sitting in there properly. I am still a hair too shallow, so I've got to cut this out a little bit more to get it. Alright, so now we're sitting flush in there, so I've got to make sure this angle on this light is the same as that light, and after that we'll tighten our nut.
So it is right, now we're going to tighten this.
So now I'll double check the angle, get this in here, and then we'll get to our wiring. We cut both ends of these. Now we're going to snake this through here. And we're going to connect them on the back side. Both of these, which more will get cut off obviously. So we're obviously going to get this wrapped up, but I'm trying to check my length of the cut. So when you cut this, figure out where you want to cut it. Obviously always cut extra. Make sure we have separation. So normally everything I solder, but on these I'm just using butt connectors. All we got is a positive and a negative return signal, so it's really not that big of a deal. I personally rather cut my OEM harness once and then trim my aftermarket stuff. It's just something I'm used to, so that's why I'm cutting these. I get happy with, make a decision on where I want them, and then they don't move. Then from there I can adjust my aftermarket ones. If I measure them, cut them perfect first time, awesome. If anything, I cut them too long and I just keep trimming them instead of trimming our OEM one. So now that we got our link, we've got heat shrink here. And so this isn't how I would typically do it, but with the way this bike is, this is kind of the, I guess, this is kind of the cheap way to do it. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide my heat shrink on first. Then I'm going to
this print.
Now we should be able to slide these up, heat shrink them, and feed our wires through. I'm personally not a big fan of putting electrical tape around wires, but the reason I'm doing this bike is, one, this bike isn't real expensive. The parts of this thing are pretty cheap. It is a great bike, but if you look at what we have here, like from the factory, it has electrical tape on almost every end. This wire loom is kind of the same deal, so for this bike it's really not that big of a deal. That is all wired up. I'm going to double check my angle again, and then we will get this fastened on. With the turn signals on, installed, and as you can tell, we are hyper flashing. I do have the relay for that I will be doing a video on tomorrow on the install. So thank you guys for checking out this video. I know this is a long video compared to most, but I'm trying to do a better breakdown on what I am doing. I have a better setup now. We've got a nice microphone, nice tripod. Still got to get the garage cleaned up, like I say in every video, but we're getting further along on this bike. So if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. If there's anything you'd like to see or you have any questions on this video, comment that down below. And definitely check out the channel. I have a whole playlist on things I've done to this bike, and I post every day, Monday through Friday, on auto body, auto mechanic, and how-to video. And I have a lot more coming on this bike, so check all that out, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.